In this video, we are looking at analyzing complex characters in the novel Things Fall Apart. Our objective is to analyze how an author creates complex characters. Let's talk first about characterization. Characterization is how an author describes characters in order to make them come to life. So what are the ways that an author tells us about what the character's doing, what they're like, in order to make them a fully fleshed out character? We've got two types of characterization: direct characterization and indirect characterization. In direct characterization, the author directly tells us what the character is like, whereas indirect, the author is showing us what the character is like. Let's take a look at these examples. So in the first example for direct characterization, she was a mean old witch. The author is directly telling us what the woman is like. She is a mean old witch. We don't have to infer anything. There are no clues here. The author's being very straightforward. In the indirect characterization examples, the character says, "I'll get you, my pretties, and eat your hearts." So she is using like witch-like language, just like the Witch of the West, the Wicked Witch of the West in The Wizard of Oz. She left the whimpering, cold, and hungry puppy outside in the rain. So based on her actions, that she's heartless, that she's not kind to this puppy, that shows us that she's mean, right? So the author here is showing us what she's like rather than telling us directly. Let's talk about tools for indirect characterization. So in all of these examples, the author is showing us that the character is a mean old witch, but they're doing it by showing rather than telling. So on your notes, first of all, you have this down here on the left side. So you have an S and then a blank, a T and then a blank. So make sure you're filling this in as well. So these 5 different aspects that we're looking at, first of all, is what the character says. So what the character says, this is the character's words and how they speak that reveal what the character is like. So the example is she cackled. So the fact that she's cackling and not laughing or shouting tells us something about her as a character. We associate cackling with like a crazy witch kind of person. Next is what the character thinks. So a character's thoughts and their feelings show what's going on in their mind and shows us something about them as a character. In our example, there's a couple walking by and the woman's milky eyes, which is gross, glared. And she thinks, why do they get to keep their youth and health? Enjoy it. One day you'll be just like me. So she's thinking about this happy young couple and like they're able-bodied and now she's old and going blind, and that tells us that she's like regretful or she's creepy, that she's just watching this couple and you should enjoy your health. Effect on others is next. How a character makes others feel, both positive or negative, reveals traits about them. So think about the people that you're around that make you feel a certain way. What does that tell you about that person? Like they're kind, they're generous, they're cruel, they're inconsiderate. The children shrunk away as the woman passed by. So the fact that they're shrinking away as the woman goes by tells us something, that they're afraid of her, they don't like her. And they say, that's the lady at the end of the block who threw rocks at us when we were trick-or-treating. So the fact that she threw rocks at them when they were trick-or-treating, that has an effect on these boys, and now they're shrinking away from her. Next is the character's actions. What a character does and how they do it can reveal their attitudes and feelings. So she's leaving a whimpering, cold, and hungry puppy outside in the rain. That shows us that she's inconsiderate, she's unkind. And last is what the character looks like. So a character's appearance can reveal things like their interests, their experiences, their hobbies, what they value. So think about like when you get dressed or when you see how someone else is dressed and what that reveals about them as a person, like their personal style. So if her hair was lank and fell across her gnarled face and twisted in knots down her back, that shows she's not taking care of her hair. So what does that reveal about her, what she values, what she finds important? Let's talk about character complexity. So complex characters are round, dynamic characters. With characterization, we have round characters and we have flat characters. Round characters mean they exhibit many traits, like we see different sides of them as a character, both good and bad. Dynamic characters are the opposite of static. That means that they change throughout the course of the story. Maybe they improve, maybe they get worse, maybe they get worse and then they improve, but there's some kind of change throughout the story. And often with complex characters, their motivations, which is why they do what they do, will change. Let's take a look at a complex character. This is Walter White from Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul. He's a complex character because we see many different sides of him, and he changes throughout the TV series. So if you have seen the show, you know that at the beginning of the series, he is like this kind of nerdy high school English teacher. Talking about myself, nerdy high school chemistry teacher who is diagnosed with cancer and can't afford his cancer treatments. So he's trying to figure out a way to make money to pay for his cancer treatments. He goes on like a ride-along with his brother-in-law, who is a DEA agent, so Drug Enforcement Agency, and they bust like a meth lab. And Walter sees one of his former students jump out of the window of the house, and he kind of starts getting this idea, like, I could make a lot of money by making and selling drugs. And so at the beginning of the series, he's doing this as a way to make money to pay for his cancer treatments. As the series goes on, he starts to get like fulfillment from this because he's very, very unfulfilled, like in his personal life. Like he was this really brilliant chemist and had a business that he got out of when he was younger, and he has a son who's sick, and now he's sick, and he just has a lot of like dreams that have been unfulfilled, but now he's like revered, he's feared by people. So he changes in that way. And his motivations for why he is like making and selling drugs changes as well. So it was just to pay for his treatments. Then it becomes in order to have this personal fulfillment. And I'm not going to spoil the end of the show for you and tell you like what he's like at the end, but we can see a good chunk of that change just in the middle of the series there. So ways that he is round, we see multiple of his traits. He's a brilliant chemist. He's ambitious, but he's also a criminal. He's a mastermind. He is manipulative. He gets other people to do what he wants. He's dynamic, and he changes throughout the story in that he's like this nerdy, middle-aged guy. He becomes this intimidating and fearsome drug kingpin. And his motivations change, like I mentioned, from why he was decided to go into the drug business at the beginning to what he was getting from it toward the middle to end of the series.